Hi everyone! I recently did some analysis of the two limiters, FabFilter Pro-L and Ozone 9 Maximizer. I don't feature any audio comparisons in this video, but instead I'm just listing out my observations after diving deep into both a hard rock master and a big orchestral master. This is always a learning in progress for me and my ears, and so I'd love to make this more of a discussion, and if anyone has any input on the two limiters, I encourage you to post your observations in the video comments. Number one, first is the FabFilter Pro-L, a combination of the presets Modern and Transparent. I simply start with the Transparent preset right here. Then I go over to Style down here and switch to Modern. My observations, the Modern style will almost never distort. There must be more compression happening. The resulting final sound is not as open or wide sounding. It's good for if you need to err on the safe side so that your track never has any distortion. It's good for if you'd like the center to be ever so subtly more punchy or pumpy. If you need a slightly less CPU intensive alternative, the Ozone 9 IRC3 balanced right down here seems to be similar from what I can tell. Number two, next is the FabFilter Pro-L transparent preset. So transparent with the transparent style. There's a greater risk for distortion if it's pushed too hard, but it's more open and wide sounding than if you're in the modern style. It's a good preset to start with in my opinion, and then if you end up hearing distortion, you could switch over to the modern style. Number three, next is the Ozone 9 IRC4 Classic mode. It's right down here, IRC4 Classic. My observations, it's a wide open sound with a touch of indescribable coloring happening. You run some risk of distortion if pushed too hard. It's excellent for something you want wide and full. I'll say right now that this is going to be my first choice for my limiter moving forward, at least for the time being. I may learn or hear something new next week, who knows. If you need a slightly less CPU intensive alternative, IRC3 clipping seems to be similar from what I can tell. Number four, next is the Ozone 9 IRC4 modern mode right here. My observations, it's a wide open sound with a touch of indescribable coloring happening, but less so than the classic mode. In other words, a bit more clarity and detail. You run some risk of distortion if pushed too hard. It's excellent for something you want wide and full. If you need a slightly less CPU-intensive alternative, IRC3 Crisp seems to be similar from what I can tell. Number five. And lastly is the Ozone 9 IRC4 Transient mode. My observations, it's a wide open sound, no coloring happening, maintain full clarity and detail. You run some risk of distortion. If pushed too hard, you run some risk of distortion if pushed too hard. It's excellent for something you want wide and full. In Ozone 9, for the character lever right here, from what I can tell, at 0, the resulting sound will be as open as possible, but with greater risk of distortion. At 10, it will be, right here to 10, it will be more compression pumpy with lower distortion. And so, my starting point, at least for the time being, is Ozone 9 IRC4 Classic mode with the character starting at 0. That's my winner of choice there. I hope this has been helpful. Again, if anyone has any input on the two limiters, I encourage you to post your observations in the comments.